Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Simmons, the president and founder of Astronomers Without Borders, and welcome to our Hangout for January 2015, where we're going to talk about all things GAM, Global Astronomy Month. This is going to be a very big Global Astronomy Month this year. There are a lot of new things that are going to be very exciting. We're expecting the biggest ever. And so we're glad that you could join us, whether you're watching us live or watching this in the archive, because we have a number of guests with us here who are going to talk about what's coming up and what we can look forward to. So I'd like to introduce the people that we have as guests here today. First, we're going to have Andrew Fazekas, otherwise known as Night Sky Guy, on his own blog. Andrew is Astronomers Without Borders communications manager, and he's the one who fills your inbox with mail and your social media with tweets and the like. And Andrew's also a journalist who works for National Geographic and Yahoo and a number of other things. So welcome, Andrew. We're going to go over things. So welcome to the program this month, Andrew.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here, and yeah, I'm really pumped about this the GAM this year. I think it's really going to be better than ever.
Okay, great. And Andrew is joining us from Montreal, in Canada. We also have Daniela de Paulis, who's familiar to people who've been following Astronomers Without Borders. Daniela is the AstroArtist chairman. In fact, she's the one who founded this program, which has become really big. You know, one of those things I never expected, but she's made it enormous. So we'll talk about what's coming up in GAM and an announcement of a new program. So welcome, Daniela.
Hi, Mike. Welcome. Hi.
And Erika Blumenfeld is this month's Astro Artist of the Month. Erika has been part of the program before. And Erika is going to go over what she's blogging about, but she's part of the big announcement that we have as far as AstroArts that I think is going to be a really big thing. And so Erika is joining us from Washington State in the Northwest U.S. Welcome, Erika.
Thank you very much.
And Bob Eklund, familiar to everyone, is the Astro Poetry Chair, or I refer to him as the AWB Poet Laureate. And the Astro Poetry Contest will again run in Global Astronomy Month this year. It gets a lot of entries from around the world. So we'll go over briefly what to be expected and what has happened before. So welcome to the program, Bob.
Thank you, Mike. We're looking for a great Astro Poetry Contest this year, starting in March and running through the end of April. We're running it 2 months this time. And we're looking especially for participation from the schools. And
okay.
We're working toward that.
Great, great, great. So we'll talk about that in a moment. So let's go back to Andrew and start with Andrew Fazekas. So Andrew, and you've always got the best background there too, because you have Chesley Bonstall paintings in the background. So I can't help noticing those because I grew up with those 50s and 60s. But anyway, Andrew, so you have been tweeting and blogging and everything else, and there's a lot more to come. So you have, this is your second GAM with AWB, I think. And
that's right.
So what do you think are some of the highlights in the schedule this time?
You know, I'm looking at the schedule right now. I've got it in front of me, and it's really jam-packed this year. It's exciting stuff, I think, for all kinds of folks out there. Whatever you're interested related to astronomy, space, be it something cultural or science, and you know, what it does is it connects everybody, right? That's what AWB is all about, isn't it? It's connecting all different cultures, folks from all across the world, and you know, who better to do it than AWB? We're very unique about being able to do this, and this is what makes it so fun, is that we've got all these events. So you've got stuff like, for instance, a real variety. But if you're like into observing stuff, like I myself am an amateur astronomer, so I love looking up at the sky, be it with just the naked eyes, binoculars, or telescopes. We have stuff for folks like that, for instance. We've got the Global Star Party, which I think is going to be one of the big highlights. And that one, I think, is going to be, yes, that's on April 25th this year. And that's going to be really amazing because that really pulls everyone together and from all across the world. And we encourage clubs and organizations to begin now. Now's the time actually to start organizing those parties. Be able to register on our website, and I think, Mike, we're going to be able to do that folks are going to do that in the next week, right? To be able to register their events.
Right,
and
we'll talk about that a little bit too, yeah.
Yeah, that's something that's going to be important that we do. So get involved with AWB. That's what we're looking for. We're going to be looking for submissions from your star parties that you organize on the ground. We want to see what happens locally. And you know what's interesting is that we all share the same stars, right? We've got the same constellations there, but it's going to be unique to see how that's interpreted from different cultures around the world and different places, different regions, different countries. So that's something that's really cool. And of course, talking about that, we cannot leave out the lunar eclipse. That's on April 4th. That's going to be one of the things. What a way to start, GAM this year, is with a beautiful lunar eclipse. You don't need a telescope. You don't need binoculars. It's something that you can just soak in with your eyes. As long as you've got clear or partly clear skies, you can really enjoy the lunar eclipse. We are going to have actually the virtual telescope project coming in with Gianluca Massi, as a professional astronomer. What luck we have with that, by the way, don't we, Mike? Because we get this professional astronomer, and he's wonderful in how he describes things. He brings the excitement. You can see the passion, in him when he's doing his webcasts. And they're extremely popular. Last year, we had tens of thousands of people literally tuning in to his webcasts. And we have a series of them throughout the month. So if you're not a person that goes out a lot, or maybe you're clouded out, you're stuck inside, that doesn't mean you can't do astronomy. We've got this beautiful virtual way of doing through webcasts, showcasing through robotic telescopes some amazing stuff in the sky, including like the Messier Marathon we'll have asteroids showcased as well. So a whole slew of stuff. And I didn't even mention we have astro poetry, right? We've got, which is extremely popular. I mean, as a communicator, it's knocked my socks off because I didn't really even think of it that much. And in the past year that I've been with AWB, this has really been an eye-opener for me, how much this is connected with the public around the world. This poetry, and it's beautiful, and we connect it with amazing imagery as well. So it's just been fantastic. I'm sure we'll hear more about that.
Yeah. And also, Andrew, and that's something that's been a surprise to me too. And we're going to talk about that with Bob Eklund, and hear a little bit of the poetry that won last year, as well as some of the AstroArts, which we've already mentioned that you have behind you on your walls, some early AstroArt.
And that's a deep connection, right, with astronomy and art. I mean, that's been going on for forever, and that's, even in popular culture today, it's just something so popular. And whenever we post something on our Facebook page or Twitter about art, it gets retweeted, people start talking, they share it. Obviously, it's making connections with people, and that's really very fulfilling to see.
Right, and let me mention too, going back to the observing, you mentioned the lunar eclipse. Well, we're going to have lunar programs that aren't all up on the website. There's a lot to come.
There's exciting stuff.
Yeah, and there are a lot of ideas, and we're working with partners who are expert observers. I've been an amateur astronomer for over 40 years, and this is the part that's always mattered to me most, although I've been thrilled with the things we've done in AstroArts and so on. But my connection always goes back to looking, putting my eye up, doing an eyepiece, and looking at things. So we have lunar programs that are going to be new this year throughout the whole month. We're also going to have some other resources where we're going to highlight the binocular objects and other types of objects. We'll have resources and ask people to show those to the public as well. New ideas about what we can do, because most of the time in observing programs, what people do around the world, what the clubs always do, is sharing with others. There aren't other sciences like this where we have amateurs all around the world, and all they really want to do is show other people how cool it really is and get them involved. So we'll have new ways of doing that this year to come in the next couple of months.
Yeah, and definitely let's not forget is that we have this wonderful clearinghouse through our online website, which is being revamped. It's going to be fantastic. It's coming out, so people should stay tuned for that. And we are excited to see what people out there are doing. We want to see reports. We want to see those photos coming in, and seeing how people are really, how they're celebrating GAM in their own way. So we're going to be putting all of that together, and we're sharing it. This is a great way to get the word out of what you are doing in your local region.
Right, and that's really the whole idea. A lot of people say we're an outreach organization because there's so much outreach going on in the programs that we do. Well, Astronomers Without Borders is about connecting people through our love of the sky, through our sharing of the sky, and sharing the same sky. Of course, it's a little different north and south hemisphere, but for those of us in the north, for example, when I am traveling to Iran, which I go to quite a bit, which is one of the reasons that this started, I'm at the same latitude as I am here in Southern California. I see exactly the same stars and the same kind of light pollution in Tehran is coming out of Los Angeles, so we have the same issues. And sharing is what it's really all about. Now, I want to mention the new website, which is planned to launch this weekend. Hopefully, it'll be up and running, everything fine next week. It's going to, the whole purpose is to have new tools for sharing, that everything will be integrated. So when you post something, it will be flagged to go onto a program or an event or something else, so people will see what you're doing. And we will have, in a while, a forum where people can interact and talk to each other about these things too. So this is all about sharing. And that, if I had to describe Astronomers Without Borders in one word, what's our mission? It's sharing. And that's what we're going to do. And that's what GAM is going to be all about this year.
Yeah, and better than ever, because we're going to have so many different programs. Like you said, people should stay tuned because there are more exciting things that we haven't even put on the schedule yet, that we're really working hard right now, trying to pull all our resources together to offer really the best that we can, and some really exciting stuff for all different levels, any kind of interaction with astronomy that we can think of that can bring, you don't have to be a real keen observational astronomer with a large telescope to participate by any means. And it's for all ages too. We're even trying to gear it for the youngsters as well, for children as well. So to get families together, and astronomy is something that is really, I think, something that you can do peacefully by yourself. Could be something really meditative, but it can also be something that really lends itself for sharing and teaching as well. Wonderful teaching opportunities too out there.
Right, and we just got a question actually in the Q&A app. Anybody who's watching this live, if you have a question or comment, please add it into the Q&A app on the Google Plus page if you're watching there. And Liam here, who we'll talk to in a little bit, asked about how many countries will be involved in GAM this year. Well, we can never predict, but it's usually most of the world's countries. Astronomers Without Borders is truly international. I use the word global because it's not just about going between one country and another, but there are people in Uganda and in Uruguay and all different countries. Indonesia is big, Philippines is big. It's very surprising, actually, some of the countries that are biggest in astronomy. That's one of the things I've found in my trips to Iran, and one of the reasons I like it. Maybe the most active country in the world as far as amateur astronomy and enthusiasm of all kinds. So it is really most of the world.
And what's interesting is you mentioned Iran or like Oman or the Philippines. You don't really hear much about what's going on there. Here, like I'm in Canada, and I'm not hearing too much about what's going on. The first time I really started to see how active the communities are there, the astronomy, is through AWB and through what GAM is offering, and seeing those images and the stories, the reports that are coming in. It's quite an eye-opener to see how popular astronomy is throughout the world. It's just very impressive.
It's everywhere, and there's no question, and it is in every culture. And I can pretty much guarantee that people will see reports from countries they haven't heard of, or at least don't know what continent they're on, so unless you're a geographer, because I've had to look up a couple, and I'm a geography nut. So it's going to be great, and I'm really very excited about what we're going to have on this year. And so thank you very much, Andrew. I want to move on to Daniela, to Paulis, who is going to be talking about AstroArtists. So thanks for joining us, Andrew, and
my pleasure.
Go tweet.
Clear skies, everyone.
Yeah, all righty. Thanks, Andrew. So Daniela de Paulis joins us from near home in the Netherlands, but she is Italian. She's been a bit of a nomad, moving around one place or another to do her art. And Daniela has created something that I could never have imagined, and that's one of the great things about Astronomers Without Borders. It's provided platforms for many things. And on the new website, we're dividing up programs into three major categories, and art and culture is going to be one of those categories, the AstroArts program, but also cultural programs, because culture, every culture has astronomy in it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Daniela, welcome. Thanks for joining us from the gallery where you're doing some work in the Netherlands.
Yes, yes. My background is not as colorful as Andrew's, but well, it's the office room of a gallery.
Yeah.
So every time we talk about AstroArts, I'm also amazed by how much we achieved in only 2 years. It started as an experiment between Tilina and myself. We had this idea of starting this art program for Astronomers Without Borders. Tilina Ignatigala is also an astronomer and used to be a AWB communicator. And we didn't expect, certainly, that it would be so welcomed and popular in AWB. But actually, the more we work on AstroArts, the more we realize that it is definitely conveying astronomy in a very engaging way. And also, the artists find really interesting to work with astronomers. So it's an incredible experience also for me to invite the artists to be part of the program and to really see how they get inspired by astronomy and by the possibility of posting their work on our platform. And it's expanding. The program is continually expanding. Well, we will maybe talk about it later. But I think we have lots to say also about the Global Astronomy Month program. So I made a list of all the programs we have, and as you said, we are going to expand into culture in general. This has always been a priority for me as well, because for me, arts and cultures are very much connected, and I cannot think of one without the other. So. And in fact, we already had a few attempts to have include cultural events. In the past, I remember we invited even a cook from NASA, a retired food scientist who presented a series of recipes. And so, but now we are going to do that in a more systematic way. So for GAM, we invited a science communicator from Romania, Adrian Fartade, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, and he's going to make a program about cosmogonies, which is the history of the cosmos in different cultures. So it will create a parallel story of cosmogonies from different cultures around the world. And then we will have the AstroArtists, Stefano and Angelina Yershova, who will make an astro concert, so an experimental music program with astronomy, visual astronomy narrative story, which I don't know much about it yet. Then we are working for the kids program. This is still a bit of a work in progress, but something which I find really very inspiring about this project we are working on is the fact that the kids will not have to compete with each other, which I think it's a very inspiring educational project. Yeah. Usually we see a lot of space art competitions, which are great. They really make space research more popular also amongst the children. But in general, I always had some issues with this idea of competing with each other, because especially with art, when I find myself judging this kids' work, I realized that they're all unique, and it's very difficult to decide whether one should win against another. So,
Yeah, yeah.
and
And
we had this,
you know, this we're thinking of doing this. Pardon me, but we're thinking of doing an actual original artwork with the entries, or making a physical exhibition that will travel around the world to different schools, so that the children in these different schools in every country can see what children have drawn in countries around the world, again sharing it and showing the children how everything is universal within astronomy, that everybody's seeing the same stars, and so that's a way. The point is that everybody's a winner that way. Everybody is involved. Everybody gets to be a part of the action, with nobody standing out. We're just one big community.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting to learn to see the differences rather than competing for the best colors, best shapes, or whatever. So this is something which hopefully will develop into a yearly program which we will present every year. Then we will have Erika as our, well, she will present her project Sky Scrolls, which we will talk about it more later, and Giovanni Renzo with the Cosmic Concert, which is a winner every year. It's
always very popular every year. An original composition performed live for the first time by Giovanni with a backdrop of astronomical images, and it's really always something to look forward to.
And our guest artist for April will be Melanie King, who has a very interesting way of working with astronomical images using old disused technology. So she brings back to life this ancient technology to make photography. And optics, which again is my performance where we bounce images off the moon. And for this year, we will partner with a museum, a sort of museum in Italy. I say sort of museum because it is now a well-known art place where many artists made incredible works. And it is also called a museum, but it started as a next food factory in the outskirts of Rome, where I'm from, and now it's a sort of social experiment in a sense, because artists work there. They use this venue to make artworks, and at the same time, this place is shared by a group of immigrants who have been living there for several years. So now there is a community, a growing community of people who share, you know, their cultures in this interesting venue. So we will have artists creating works, especially for the moonbounce, and at the end we will have an exhibition in this museum, which is called MAM, M-A-A-M, if anybody wants to Google it. Mm-hmm. And I think I've made a list of all the artists we have. Yeah, I think that's the program. So it's about seven programs in total.
Quite a lot, and possibly even more. We may have some Google Hangouts or something else to present some of these. So there are always new things coming up. It's very difficult to plan these dozens of programs too far ahead of time, and things happen, and we do it. So that's one thing I'm glad about. We're free to have the flexibility to bring new things all the time. So it's going to be quite a program as far as AstroArts, and I'm excited too, especially about the idea of bringing culture, astronomy in culture, different cultures around the world into it this year. And Daniela, I'm going to go talk to Erika, but I'll come back to you when we have a little bit of announcement coming up soon. And because Erika has some very interesting things going on, and we're going to get into more of the art and culture in countries around the world. So welcome, Erika. You're joining us from the Northwest U.S., and I think you're muted still. There we go. Yeah, we got you. Okay.
We got. Okay, great.
Liam, our producer, who will meet, who could make him come out of the shadows here at the end of the program to talk about something cool. We'll always fix the things that we don't do right. So he
Great.
got that.
Thank you.
So Erika, welcome and thanks for joining us here.
Thank you.
Well, Erika, you work in, well, you're a transdisciplinary artist, as it says on your lower third there, and you work in a lot of different mediums. And this is really interesting. Of course, the idea of Astronomers Without Borders, it's not really just about geography or geopolitics. We do cross borders that way.
Yeah.
But it has become much more about crossing the borders of different disciplines, combining art and culture and science and fiction and so many different things. So this is the area that you work in.
Well, it is. I mean, and this has been sort of an evolving understanding for myself because, you know, I used to think of myself as a photographer and then a visual artist, but as I watched my own artistic process evolve, I realized that a big part of what I do is spend time really deeply researching things that are interesting to me. And so what comes out of that is that I end up sort of diving into these other disciplines, and I've done that, you know, mostly with scientific institutions. So, you know, the Scripps Institution of Oceanography and the South African National Antarctic Program, and even a program with a little project with NASA. And so what I end up having to do is to gain a language that's unfamiliar to me in order to try to communicate something that is inspiring to me about phenomena and science. And so what I realized is that actually what I'm interested in is that place where, you know, we're not just focusing on one discipline or another, but we're sort of transcending disciplines. And so I adopted this sort of transdisciplinary approach because it seemed more holistic in a way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's interesting to us, and of course, I have been familiar with Astro art through things like the Chesley Bonstall paintings from the 50s that Andrew had hanging behind him, but there are so many new things now, so it's exposing me to a lot of new things that I find fascinating. And let's talk about one of yours, which sounds from an astronomer's standpoint fairly ordinary. It's called light recordings. But as we will see when we see some images of this work, it is not at all familiar to us. Why don't you tell us what's going on with this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I come at this from a very traditional photographic background, and I started very young when I was in high school. And for the first 10 years I was doing photo-based work, I was really interested in the camera and light and shadow, and I was interested in looking at the world the way the world is, the way I see it with my eyes. And then at one point in about 1998, I had what I like to refer to as my existentialist crisis, which was, you know, perfect for my mid-20s, and essentially asked the question, you know, why should I take a photograph of the tree? The tree is the tree. You know, the photograph of the tree is not the tree. And it was sort of this moment of questioning my medium, questioning what is the function of a photograph and what is the science of the technology. And what ended up evolving was a new body of work that essentially kind of came out of this eureka moment where I was messing around with this big old camera that I had from 1888, and it was, you know, a large plate camera, and I had built, there was a 5x7 adapter back for it, and I then further made a 4x5 adapter so that I could put my Polaroid film holder in this thing, and I was planning on making a body of work. And at that moment, I checked the camera for light leaks, and of course this is the photographer's nemesis. I mean, you don't want light leaking in where you don't want it. And so I kept the shutter closed and I pulled the back of the Polaroid, and what I saw when I developed it was this perfectly arced gradation of light across the film plane. And it was just this lovely moment of this is the fundamentals of my medium. This is light and light-sensitive material, you know, reducing photography down to its basic ingredients. This is sort of this is sort of everything I've wanted photography to be. And so I started immediately in the piece, the first piece in this series, which is this, black and white sort of grid. At the top left, I started to I wanted to test the parameters of this new process because I was seeing it for the first time. And so I just, increased my exposure throughout, 42 pieces of film. And while that was happening, this massive snowstorm blew in, and it was whirling, and the light had changed. And it occurred to me that if all I was recording was the light, then I was actually recording the phenomena of the world around me through light. And so this piece is actually called, Approaching Storm, and it occurred to me that I could actually apply this to actual astronomical phenomena. So the next...
Are you saying then that each of the different squares in that piece were in fact affected by the conditions around you that's impacting what you're recording?
Yes, I mean, and that was the premise that I started embarking on this project with, essentially, that everything that was happening at the time that I recorded that light affected that light, the lighting, the conditions of the space, how the light was happening, and so that there was this sense of time and place and phenomena that was being recorded, since there was no imagistic component.
And so the next one is a further exploration of that, I guess, called Winter Solstice?
Yes, and so this is a piece that sort of took a leap. This was many years later. I decided to, I wanted to record a full winter solstice, which of course is the shortest day of the year in the northern hemisphere. And I wanted to see myself how much light we experience across a day. So I worked with a team, and I had a grant from Creative Capital Foundation where we essentially documented minute by minute the light over the course of that day from sunrise to sunset. So what you see, again, and it's installed, so those are 4x5 pieces of film. I think there are 625 of them. They're push-pinned to the wall directly with clear push-pins, and the piece is about 8 by 10 feet when it's installed. And so it's installed chronologically from top to bottom, left to right. So what was surprising to me in this is that I actually got to see the trajectory of the sun based on my location on the planet. And I recorded this in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I was living at the time. And it's essentially, it took longer in the morning for the sun to reach a point at which it was exposing continuously, and so essentially the sun was farther away and rising and then setting closer to us. So you could see actually where I was on the Earth, which was a surprise.
Is this is each row then a different day?
No, it's all one day. The whole thing is one day. Yeah. So every minute from sunrise to sunset, I was exposing.
Oh, I see. So going down the left-hand column, and then the next, then the next.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Well, and the next is sort of it looks similar but a different orientation, called Twilight.
Yes. So again, I started recording at the bottom of the piece, and then worked upward towards the sky, at least in the orientation of the piece installed. And I think this one has 605 or 8 Polaroids, and again installed directly to the wall with push pins. It's about 11 feet tall and about 7.5 feet wide, and it recorded the light at twilight, and then as the light diminished into nighttime.
Well, and then also I noticed that it is not just black in the squares after the sun has set there, especially up towards the top. There is a lot of white there. Does that represent clouds having moved in, or what is that?
That may actually be a result of the fact that the Polaroid film has kind of a glossy sheen to it, and in the installation This was installed at the Portland Institute for Contemporary Art in Portland, Oregon. And I think it was just closer to the lights in the gallery. And so it's not, it's illuminating the reflection. So,
part of the photograph. Okay, and well then we move from twilight to dawn, midday, and dusk in your next piece here.
So this is just a close-up of the Polaroids themselves. I did a short piece, just dawn, midday, and dusk, so you can kind of see what the gradation does up close.
Mm-hmm. And the next one is dawn by itself.
By
is
itself.
this a close-up then of what we had seen earlier?
No. So at this point, I was interested in finding a way to enlarge the surface area of the light. So I started with 4x5 Polaroid film. So the other option is to use positive photographic paper at different sizes, and essentially it's the same process. It's a positive to a positive. And so that's what this piece is constructed of. Each one of those rectangles is about 23 by 19 inches. So then the whole piece becomes, again, about 8 by 10 feet installed. And so I started working with that process so that there was more, that to enlarge the experience of the light and to diminish the sense of the grid a bit.
Yeah, and the next piece we have here shows the installation in place for fractions of light and time. Same idea, I guess, but
yeah,
see it in context.
Yeah. So I started. I was testing all the parameters of what this work means, and one of the things I realized was that I was very focused on what the light was doing, but really time was such a component, and there was no way to record the light without also recording time. So I did a work that was sort of focusing more on the random moments, random times, and I exposed. I did several bodies of work in the fractions of light and time group, where essentially recording time and noting what time it was that I took it, and morning was sort of the white line was on the bottom, and evening the white line was at the top as a way to orient. And then this is just an installation of some of them. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Okay, there we go.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I forget to unmute myself sometimes. So I don't think we'll have time to run through all of these, but let's take a look at the next one anyway, and the few that follow that, because it's an interesting progression. Spring 2005, 24 March, and then following that is 21 May, and following that is 18 June. Something's happening here. And these are familiar as astronomers. I can sort of figure out what this is related to, because all of these things that you're talking about are astronomical phenomena, and the amount of light and how it affects things is something we take into account in observing all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this is just a different way of presenting them. So what does this series represent?
So I documented all 93 days of spring, from the equinox to the solstice, and I took an exposure every day starting at sunset on the equinox in March, and I kept the time the same, so that what you saw was the increase of light as the sun moves to the northernmost place in the sky and becomes brighter on the solstice, when we have the brightest day of our year, the most light during the year in the northern hemisphere.
Right. And you've got a number of works here related to the moon, and I wish we had time for all of those, but we have other guests as well. Maybe if we can get Liam to pull up number 12, their total lunar eclipse at least. I think this is something that might be familiar to all of us, and it is related to the to what Andrew mentioned with the total lunar eclipse coming up. So, and I believe we have that up there. So yeah, clearly it's recording the moon with the characteristic red color of an eclipse.
Right.
As the light changes through the eclipse, this is something I can certainly recognize.
So this, yeah, so this is exactly what that is, and essentially I recorded the full lunar eclipse from when it was full through the whole diminishing of the light back to when it was full, and so that's the 4 hours of the eclipse on October 27th, 2004.
Well, Erika, I want to talk to you about the new project that you have coming up as well, and we'll bring in a little while. We'll bring Daniela back in to talk about that as well. But you are the AstroArtist of the Month, so right now your blogs are being posted on the AWB website, and maybe we can get a look at one of those, the one I'm thinking of, and see if Liam can react fast enough here. But these can all be found on the Astronomers Without Borders website under the website will change right now. It's under news, unfortunately, and then blogs and AstroArts blog. And here is your most recent post, and it has a picture of the globular cluster M13, very familiar to all of us in the northern hemisphere here. And tell us about what your series of posts on the AstroArts blog are about this month.
Sure. So essentially, I've gone through all the different bodies of work that I've done over the last 16 years, and I start with the light recordings work that I just showed you because I feel like that's the work that relates more heavily to the astronomical phenomena here. And but my work has transitioned through a project that I did in Antarctica, looking at preservation of the north and south polar regions. I've looked at bioluminescence and worked at these beautiful luminescent creatures in the ocean waters and how important they are to the production of oxygen in our kind of global oxygen system. I've looked at the increase of wildfires in the Southwest and how that's affecting ecosystems there, and all of this sort of has promoted in me this sense of stewardship for nature, and so I've kind of worked my way through that whole process to the post that was the new post that was published today, which talks about this new project, Sky Scrolls, which essentially is a stewardship project that looks at our relationship with the night sky.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And this is something where you're asking people to make contributions to the project itself. And
yes.
I think this is part of the announcement that we're going to have. Let's hold off on that for a moment. I'll come back to you and Daniela when we announce this in just a little bit. But this is really one of the exciting announcements that we have this year, especially in AstroArts. So I want to thank you for showing us what we have so far. I'd like to get some input now on the Astro Poetry contest and so on from Bob Eklund. And Erika will be right back to you. Don't go away.
Okay, thank you.
So Bob Eklund is our poet laureate, as I like to say. Bob has been involved in Astronomers Without Borders for several years, and a friend of mine for, geez, how far back do we go? 30, 40 years, Bob? I don't know. We were
at least 40. way back. Yes, indeed.
And Bob, you are a poet, an astro poet yourself. You have a published book of astro poetry, in fact, poetry related to the sky, something that you have been doing since you were a young man. And this is a sort of a lifetime collection of poetry, I guess, about the sky. Is that right?
Yes, indeed, Mike. Yeah, it just seemed to me that this has been something I've been loving as long as I can remember, and I wanted to get something out in print. It's called First Star I See Tonight, an exploration of wonder. And so I just feel like poetry relating to the sky has a way of bringing everything together. We talked about the interdisciplinary thing. It's just I was kind of brought up to love astronomy, and actually brought up on the campus of an observatory, Yerkes in Wisconsin.
Very famous historic observatory, yeah.
Very much so, yeah. And somehow the poetry got started too, and so it's just been a great exploration for me all of my life. I'm delighted to be in it. And now working with AWB has been the crowning thing of my life. Really, it's been wonderful. So.
Wow, wow. It's been fabulous to have you as a part of it. And and here I'll make a confession. When you first said to me what you were working editing things and helping us with the website, and you said, "I'd like to start a blog about astro poetry," and I thought, "What? Well, okay, it's not going to do any harm." And it turned out to be absolutely fabulous, extremely popular. There are astro poets out there in the world, way beyond the numbers that I anticipated, and hotbeds of astro poetry like Romania. This was all learning experience for me about other countries as well. So that's been a big success, and the Astro Poetry Contest every year in Global Astronomy Month has been a big, big part of that, as Andrew mentioned. So tell us a little bit about last year's Astro Poetry Contest, what we expect for this year.
Yes, you know, last year was a great improvement over the year before. I mean, the participation was way up. We had over 200 poets last year that contributed compared to less, 870 or 80 the year before. And we're just looking for a great additional increase this year. Yeah, the contest is I think, a wonderful stimulus to people around the world to start thinking more about astronomy and about poetry. I liked what somebody said earlier about contests. I don't like people to feel that they're competing against each other. What they're really doing, I think, is sort of using the contest as a stimulus to enlarge themselves, to egg them on to do something they haven't done before. And so that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see people get into it that haven't written a poem before, and just to try it and find out that they have a new dimension in their life.
And we have seen that happen, certainly with people who have done things. Sometimes they do it casually. People that we've known who do something casually and throw it out, and we say, well, that's great, and I pass it over to you, and you publish it on the Astro Poetry blog, and there you go. They're published Astro Poets.
You know, every morning when I go to my computer, it's kind of a little feeling of a thrill, wondering what kind of a new poem I'm going to get over the transom today. And it is always exciting to see who is sending in something. Kind of makes the day.
Now, how many different countries have been involved in the blog, and how many different countries had entries in last year's Astro Poetry Contest?
Well, I think they were in the contest probably about 10 or 15 or so. I think in the blog we've had 20 or 30 countries involved over time. As you said, Romania is really a hotbed. We have some wonderful poets in Romania. I don't know how it got started there so beautifully, but it's been a great place for astronomy and poetry. And there's wonderful things coming from many places. In fact, I'd like to read 3 poems today, if I might. From last year's contest.
And I'll mention too also, Bob, real quickly, that one of the limitations is this has all been in English, so that limits the participation of poets. I think a lot of people can read and speak and write English in a limited way, but doing poetry is quite a different thing. So hopefully we'll have more countries. But,
yeah, absolutely.
Other languages sometimes as well. So what do you want to read for us today?
Regarding the language thing, we do ask people to submit their poetry in English so that they can be judged, and obviously by our judges who don't know the other languages. They can also include the original language if they have it, if they want to, just for comparison. But yes, we have to do it in English. The second place winner in last year's contest came from a poet quite a marvelous poet in Portugal, and she must have really learned her English, because it is in beautiful English, it's even from coming from that country. It's called I Fly and Wonder. I Fly and Wonder. With glass-made eyes, born from Galileo's wondrous mind, I fly and wonder the above skies. Between seeds of life and thunders of death, I glare at a brave hunter carrying lights of fire in his belt. I follow a graceful swan dancing in the sound of lyra crying on its doorstep, and I fly and wonder. Wings wide open in the arms of Milky Way I ride. I stumble over scattered clouds of dust and starbursts so bright and olden. How many Earth-like planets do you hide, full of demons and gods, kings and queens? It's like a fairy tale of the future. Kepler's smooth mirror, made of silvery reflected dreams, in its height and venture already found many. Huge hope, ferocious faith. In my dazzling journey far from home, I urge and dare, and I ask again, are we alone? I walk through islands of sparkling flares and hungry holes of absence. I float upon seas of spectrum ashes and scraps of helium hair, all fragments of Big Bang's worn-out presence. And I fly and wonder. Look, I caught a glimpse of Princess Andromeda's curls, so many light years away, yet so close. How would it feel to lie down in your diamond curves? Endless marvel and prodigy, I'm sure. Therefore, I'll keep flying and wondering for an eon more.
Oh my goodness. That
Yeah,
really
I
is
love that.
beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And what I love there is the imagery is extremely vivid, but these are all things that I recognize when she talks about the constellations. And even alludes to, for example, a star factory in the midst of the Orion Nebula mentioned near the beginning. I know all these things scientifically, and I've looked at them all in big telescopes, but what a wonderful image of them, another way to perceive these things that are so familiar to us. And I guess that's what it's about, is seeing things in a different way.
Exactly,
So Bob,
Mike. That's what makes poetry so wonderful, because it's a way of taking the science that we all know already as amateur astronomers, and then kind of bringing stirring it up, making it different.
well, and I can tell you I've had the opportunity to do a lot of observing over the last 45 years or so, and I've been very lucky to see things through very large telescopes where I can really see them well. The impression I get is always different under different conditions and different telescopes, but these are the things sometimes that, deep inside, beyond thinking, well, these are the atomic transitions that are going on there and everything, and just the absolute beauty of these things is natural phenomena. There's always something else down there that goes unexpressed, that the people with this poetry ability bring out, that we don't otherwise recognize or can't voice. And
Yes, and
Bob,
Mike, I think
Mhm.
all of us have this poetic ability hidden away somewhere, and I'm always excited when I see people bring it out in themselves that haven't really expressed it before.
Well, that's interesting. You may inspire me to try it one of these days, Bob, if I ever get time away from organizing things like the Astro Poetry Contest. So one of these days I'll give it a try. I come out of my shell, huh?
Please do, Mike. Please do. I look forward
Bob,
to it.
and I know you have some other things to read. I think we're going to have to refer people to the GAM 2014 website, which can be found directly from the GAM website, the current one. There is a link there, and they'll be able to see all the winners from last year and many of the other poems. Now, what are the dates for the poetry contest this year?
Yes, in the past we started it at the beginning of GAM on April 1, but this year we decided to expand it a little bit and start it on March 1, so that we can get the teachers involved, school teachers, to include it in their curriculum better, starting it earlier in the year. Mm-hmm. So it running March 1 through April 30th, so poems can be submitted during that 2-month period.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We urge people to keep an eye on the events in the GAM period, and perhaps the teachers can peg little exercises in their classes around some of those events, whether it's a lunar eclipse or whatever. Those will give the teachers a little clue as to things to have their children think about and look about and look at.
Great, perfect. And we can add things on the Astro Poetry blog. or in the contest, on the contest page, and maybe we'll have some other events will relate to it coming up. Bob, I think we could certainly incorporate it into other programs. There are always things that come up. People have new ideas, and we just take them and run with them and see how they work out. So starting March 1st, just a month away, entries will be open for the 2015 Global Astronomy Month Astro Poetry Contest. So I hope teachers and adults and everybody will take notice and see how many entries astro poets we find around the world this time.
One other word, Mike. In our blog, we often use imagery to go with the poems. We find that it circulates in Facebook and places like that more if there's a picture to go with it, and people love that. But in the contest, we can't accept images because we're really judging poems themselves. So in submitting to the contest, please do not submit an image, just a poem.
Okay. All right. Well, but there's always room for those outside of the contest. For those who want to submit something for the Astro Poetry blog, send it to Bob using the contact information on the website. If you have something that you think you'd like to see published up there, send it on to Bob, and you know, it's always open for submission.
By the way, Mike, poems that you have now can be submitted to the blog and then also submitted to the contest. The two are not mutually exclusive, so you can go ahead and put something on the blog with a picture if you have, and then later in March submit it to the contest.
Okay, great. So lots going on there. Another very exciting one. So, and I want to mention some other things too that we didn't touch on before. There is another contest, the International Photo Contest run by the World at Night, TWAN, and that is another very big contest. Last year, I think there were over 800 submissions in the entries there. The winners are carried on National Geographic's website and BBC and so on. So we have a number of things that people can take part in one way or the other. So thank you, Bob. I want to go back to Daniela very quickly here, and Daniela and Erika, actually. And we have a little announcement to make and to talk a little bit more about Erika's Sky Scrolls project. So welcome back, Daniela, and tell us what this is about that I've been holding off on announcing to everybody.
Yes, that's right. We are starting a new great program as part of AstroArtists, the residency program, which we've been talking about for months, and finally Erika is going to be the first artist who is going to work within this virtual residency. And I think she's just the perfect candidate for it because of her work, which relates, of course, to astronomy, but also because I think she combines very well academic studies with creative experience. I mean, her approach is totally artistic, the way she blends things together. So the aim of the artist residency is to create a project which can be shared with our global community and which makes the community also actively participating in the project. So Erika is presenting a work called Sky Scrolls, which she will describe in a second, and she will involve hopefully our AWB community and scientists as well. So she will make the most of the resources that we have available, which somehow are dormant. I feel in a way, we have such a great network, but we have to make it somehow more active, and I think art and culture can be a great way to steer the energy, which incredible energy that is there.
Well, right, and once again, the idea is about sharing and so on, and that's what this project really does, which is why it's exciting to me. Let's bring Erika in and let her then describe the Sky Scrolls project. And Erika, I'm excited about this because while this residency is not, there's no salary involved in this, but Astronomers Without Borders brings a lot of resources. We have a worldwide community that gets engaged in projects like this, and And projects that do that are the ones that I love, because it's all about us taking part in something and sharing with each other. So tell us a little bit about Sky Scrolls.
Well, thank you, and you know, it's such a huge honor to be the first artist in your program, and so I'm really excited about this collaboration, because I feel like this project in particular really needs the collaboration of a community like AWB, and so the project essentially focuses on the cultural significance of the night sky, which, you know, has been talked about here today several times. And I think, you know, my interest has been throughout all of my bodies of work to look at the cultural impact of nature, and how nature has been sort of the muse of and the source of so much of our culture making across time, whether that's art or science or you know, language or architecture, or you know, philosophy, and so my interest for Sky Scrolls is essentially to sort of point that at the night sky, and you know, my interest in dark sky stewardship, and my belief that the night sky, you know, is a driver of culture making. Essentially, it is informed and inspired, you know, cultures as far back as we can see, and that value is sort of intangible. We can't it's a necessary part of our natural landscape, and yet, you know, light pollution has really impacted people's ability to see the night sky and have this, you know, ancestral relationship with the night sky that you know, humans have had for eons. So wow. So the Sky Scrolls project essentially asks people to tell and to share their night sky stories, their personal and heartfelt stories of some experience that they've had under the starry night, and to share that. And the idea is that by sort of approaching this like truth telling and sharing of our stories, we sort of protect them, and we also focus on this relationship, because I think cultivating that relationship is what will help will help us protect this cultural significant entity.
Right. And that's something hugely important. I mean, it even goes to the question about what is astronomy. And we think of astronomy as an academic field, a scientific field, where we're looking at what is going on with the atoms and particles, and, you know, down to microscopic levels. But astronomy, we always say astronomy is the first science, and people have been looking up in wonder and awe at the sky since man first walked the earth. You know, I got to say, as a scientist, where's the evidence of that? How do we know that? Well, you know what? We know that because there's no way it didn't happen. I mean, we know people were walking around on the earth and there was gravity because it had to be, you know. So, and so this really goes back to our roots, and it makes me question a little bit, what is astronomy? Does culture make astronomy? Does astronomy make culture? You know, which came first? Which is more important? And astronomy really is different. It's hard for me to just call it a science anymore, because imagine the world if you took out every reference to astronomy in our common languages and everything else. No more stars on students' papers, you know, everything relating to a star and all kinds of other things. So it's critical. If we'd grown up without ever being able to see the sky, it would be a different place. But I want to say real quickly that this issue of our being disconnected with this, the sky is as much part of nature and as much part of our culture as anything else, and it's a little bit like getting rid of all the trees or all the other animals or something like that. We would notice that, but unfortunately, most of us now live in cities where we don't really see the sky at all, and people have lost that connection, and this is really an enormous impact. And the problem is, it's insidious. People don't know what they're missing. for the first time in the last 100 years, after all these millions of years that primates have been around, only in the last 100 years have we lost touch with that sky, and people don't realize what is missing. So this is something that I think is really very important, and it is also, I'll mention, the International Astronomical Union's theme of projects for the International Year of Light, which is this year, is our dark skies, the heritage, and so on. And this fits in exactly with that, and hopefully we'll get the IAU involved as well. So let's now, Liam can bring up here the Sky Squirrel's website that shows us a little bit about what is going on there, and people can learn a little bit more about it there as well. But you will, you have had participation there, but the participation hopefully will greatly increase. What we bring to this is our worldwide community, the engagement of people, the networks, and so on. And the idea of this residency is for you to actually develop that project throughout the year, and we'll see how that works out. So what are your expectations, or is this just all terra incognito here, where we don't know what to expect?
No, I mean, there's always an X factor when you start a new project. So it's a collaborative effort. So there will be unknowns. But you know, what I'm hoping for is to create an archive, you know, initially a digital archive of the stories, where right now it's part of my website, but the hope is through developing this project, it would have its own website that's distinct, and that way, you know, to develop a way that people can submit stories and then have them be live, so people can go and read people's stories, and that's where the sharing and the sharing of the stories will really start to happen. And then that database, as it grows, becomes a way for me as an artist to then work with the material, these incredible stories that people are sharing of their experiences of the night sky, to make artworks. And so the goal is to work with the material in different ways. One, to make it accessible to everyone as a public archive. Two, to sort of create museum-type installations where people could experience and encounter these stories in a physical and visceral way. And then possibly in some kind of a publication of the stories themselves, or at least a selection of the stories, depending on how many we receive. But I see it sort of as, you know, a multifaceted project, and because it is asking the global community to kind of participate, it's really important for me, I think, that people tell their story in their native tongue. So the website right now is you know, set up to receive these stories in the language of origin of the person submitting them, and we want to keep them that way. And there may be translations later on if other people want to access them, but there's something about, you know, keeping the integrity of the language that, and for this project, seems really critical. But essentially, it's a global community project. So to be able to collaborate with AWB's global community seems like a really great fit. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, winning for everybody, and well, this is definitely a work in progress, and the Sky Squirrel's site is available, but we will have more on the Astronomers Without Borders site now about our artist in residence, first one, Erika Blumenfeld, and more about Sky Squirrels, and you'll be hearing much more about it, hopefully by April, and we'll engage everybody there. New ideas will come of it. I think it's going to be fascinating. So I'm just thrilled to be able to have you participate in this way, Erika, and I look forward to a lot more with that. So thanks for describing it to us, and I think we'll be seeing a lot more of you here on the Hangouts. We've gone a little bit over our hour, thank goodness for online programs where there isn't somebody who's going to just turn off the camera and microphone and make me stop talking. But I do want to, before we go, bring out of the shadows our mystery guest here, Liam Kennedy, who is our producer, director, and everything else. He is the crew. And Liam, uh, thanks for everything that you do for Astronomers Without Borders. Liam owns a company called ImageBeam that does video work. He produces online programs for Planetary Society and others. And being able to have Liam just taking advantage of our friendship, because after all, what are friends for if you can't use them? So it's been great to have you, and I want to thank you again, Liam, for taking part, and tell people again, once again, about one of your projects, ISS Above, which is really taking off quite literally. I mean, you're involved with the International Space Station, manned space flight, and all kinds of things these days. Tell us what's going on with ISS Above lately.
Yeah, in fact, what's just appeared is one of the screens from the ISS Above, a couple of the screens. I'll tell you a little bit about it, but more than anything, let me just share with you why on earth I even set out on this journey. Just very quickly. I just have this thing. I believe that all human beings, when they get present to that there are 6 human beings above us in space, and it's been a manned outpost, the International Space Station, for nearly 15 years. I say that makes a difference. The knowing of that makes a difference. So I created this little device. So thanks very much for the opportunity for a sales pitch here. But I just really want to get. I don't care the numbers that this thing are out there in terms of like dollars. To me, what this is about is having people be present to the space station. So this is an ISS Above. In fact, this is a new version that's coming out soon. You can see it's actually got some logo on it.
I have to get that one.
There we go. It's a whole new thing anyway. So there's 800 of these around the world. There's 800 locations where they get notified every time the space station is in the sky above them. It could just be grazing the horizon. I give value for money. I just want the world to know that there are 6 human beings in space. Mm-hmm. That's my passion. That's what it's all about. So, and Bill Nye the Science Guy has one of these, and
a big booster. Yeah,
it was a big booster. Yeah,
and you know what? I do care about the numbers, not necessarily the dollars. Although, if you make enough money, you will be able to buy me beer for the rest of my life when we get together. But I want to see these things get out there. I mean, this is truly a public service, and this is why I keep pushing this. And I keep pushing you to develop a program based on ISS Above in Astronomers Without Borders, because that little object up there connects us all just as the rest of space does. And the fact that there are humans up there from different countries, this is humankind in space, just as we're taking the first steps out into space. This is important. This changes perspectives, and it does connect us all. And so I'm going to keep pushing you to develop something here that will do.
How about something? I'm going to put you on the spot right now. You put me on the spot. I'll put you on the spot.
Sure.
How about during Global Astronomy Month, one of the things you add is a day where all around the world, people actually recognize when the space station is above them. Just sort of think about that. It just got my mind thinking. I was thinking of it earlier when you were talking about just sky scrolls. The experience of being under the sky and what comes up for you. What comes up for you when you know above you is the International Space Station with the 6 human beings on the Earth who've made it up in space.
It's perfect. I don't know if I want to limit it to one day instead of doing the whole month, but maybe we better start small. But you're exactly right. It's a perfect idea, Liam, and I'm very glad to be put on the spot with that. And I'm glad to have this recorded. So now you're stuck with it. We got to do it, huh?
Whoops. There we go.
Yeah. So we will make something about that. I've got a lot of other ideas, believe me, when it comes to coming up with crazy ideas. I'm the champion. But we'll talk about that off air.
I
But
think
that's
if we
it.
make it a day, we'll have the astronomers. We'll have the astronauts and cosmonauts on space do a shout out to everyone. How about we do that?
Well, if we can get them to do that, that would be the best of all. And there are more capabilities ISS above has, like showing images from the space station all the time, video from from the cameras there that are really unbelievable. So there you have it, a new GAM program developed right on the spot. This is how we work here. And
Can I just add one more thing?
do that, yeah.
This is just really quick. This is the wearable ISS above.
This is crazy, yeah.
It is crazy.
And those flashing red lights would indicate that the space station is now above you.
No, the red light actually means it's a couple of hours away.
A couple of hours away.
Yeah,
okay.
whenever it's flashing red, that's the number of hours away it is.
Some sort of warning. So and I'll point out that this is one of the things it does is everybody's familiar with Heavens Above and other great websites that tell you when you can see the ISS, the International Space Station, come over your location, but this is any time at all. It can be in the middle of the day. It's there quite a lot. Not always, there's a very narrow window when you can actually see it because it has to be during twilight. It can't be too dark. It can't be too light. It has to be just right in the Goldilocks zone for viewing it. But ISS above shows you that thing is there all the time, and these people are up there looking down on you, so watch what you do. And so it's an amazing thing. And we have a new Global Astronomy Month program using ISS above, just announced here as soon as I learned about it. So there we are. Liam, thanks very much for helping out again and for finally acquiescing to bring your device into Global Astronomy Month to AWB, because I really do think this is not, I'm not getting a cut of these sales, although frankly I wouldn't mind, but that's okay. I don't need to make anything off this, but I do want to see this get used.
I tell you what, we'll put a little code on the website.
Oh, no, we won't.
When people put something like that in.
We won't. This is a contribution to AWB, so we will put something in there, and people can get it if they want to.
Okay.
Part. So that's what it's all about. And this has been a great program this time. Well, it's always a great program, right? But this has been a lot of fun talking about what's coming up in Global Astronomy Month. And as you can see, there are always new things, new surprises, flashing red lights, all kinds of things that come up that we're not expecting. And even with the previous, and Liam, you're going to put that up there now. Here is a live view from the International Space Station via ISS above. And I don't know what country it's going over now because most of the time there are clouds on Earth. But wherever that happens to be, people's ISS aboves are flashing like crazy. And they will be sharing their stories about what that means to them, and we'll get the chance when it comes over us. So I don't know where it is now, but there are people down below in that view. We know that for sure. And
by the way, I brought everyone back into the broadcast so that
excellent.
Anyway,
thank you very much. Well, I want to thank everybody. Everybody is still here. Andrew, Night Sky Guy with his own blog. Take a look at that. Daniela. Erika, Bob, thanks very much for joining us. There will be more, but I think the main message here is Global Astronomy Month. This is time for everybody. And there, in a final parting shot of the Earth from the International Space Station, a live view as it's orbiting, is a view of a lot of people down there on Earth. And we hope that everyone will take part in Global Astronomy Month. Check out the new website when it's working next week, we hope. Fingers crossed, and a lot more to come. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for viewing this in the archives, and thanks for taking part. And so from my place in California, which I don't think is in the view right down there right now, I want to thank you for being with us. This is our AWB monthly hangout for January 2015, and I hope to see you again next month.